I'd like to introduce Dr. Ana Fernanda Mayahuasca, the co-director of the Central Bank of Colombia, an economist with the Universidad de los Andes, who holds an MBA in finance. She used to be the technical vice minister for the Ministry of Finance, an institution where she also held the post of director for financial regulation. We also have with us Ty Sagalow. Ty Sagalow is a cum laude alumni of the Law Center of Georgetown University. He holds a master's in law. He holds a title in economic science. He has an executive MBA and more than 35 years of experience in the insurance industry. He's also known as a worldwide expert in the insurance industry. He's the founder of Innovation Insurance Group and Lemonade Insurance Company, an insurance company for a home insurance company who recently won the world record of solving damages in less than 3 seconds thanks to the use of robotics and AI. Lemonade is also known for behavioral economics, for incorporating behavioral economics in every process. So welcome, Ana Fernanda and Ty.
Okay, I'm switching to English. So thank you very much for the invitation to participate in this event, which I'm really thrilled that we are holding, and thank you to all the organizers, Banca Las Oportunidades, Fase Colda, etc., for taking the initiative in organizing it. And welcome, Ty. We are so happy to be able to listen to you. I hear that you've been here already for some days.
Yes. Buenos tardes, Bogotá.
I think.
Estoy muy feliz de estar aquí.
I think we have some. It's not working. Okay, so that you've been practicing your Spanish, so I hear.
This and Donde está la biblioteca is really the only thing I know.
That's probably much of what we were expecting anyway, since you've been for a short. This is your first time in Colombia, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Yes. I've been here for a couple of days, and on Sunday. Oh wait a minute! I'm supposed to do this in Spanish. This is not going to be easy for me.
Okay.
El domingo camina por la septiembre y come oblea.
Well. If you ate oblea, you don't need the Spanish anymore. You're done with our experience.
This was my total thing. But it was magnificent. Magnificent city, magnificent churches, magnificent museums, fabulous food. I think the only risk in coming to Bogota is never wanting to leave.
Yes, that's what we used to say. Well, so we have an extremely interesting story to listen from you today. So I'm going to try to start now so we can hear from you and not anymore from me. And to start, well, you already saw the video, but I'd like you to walk us through how can you describe Lemonade's business model? How is it that you innovated in this business? So we can sort of learn from the basics. What was the change there?
That little 3-minute video, and I apologize, it was only in English, really in some ways tells the entire story of not just what makes Lemonade not unusual and not terribly exciting, but also what makes Lemonade very disruptive, very exciting, and very unique. I'll start off with the unexciting part. So for those, first of all, how many of you have heard of Lemonade? Fabulous, fabulous. You know, I do chats like this all around the world, and I always ask that question. I am constantly amazed that normally more than 2/3 of the audience have heard of this little company that hasn't been around even a year. In fact, in 5 days, it will be 1 year of operations wherever I am around the world. So thank you for the Google gods and everyone else that is making that happen. But for those of you that are not familiar with Lemonade, first let me start with the basics. It is a homeowners insurance company. It sells homeowners policies, renters policies, condos, and co-ops. It is not a broker. It is not a managing general agent. It is a full-fledged, regulated and insured, regulated and licensed, rather, insurance company. It is InsurTech. So that's sort of the boring part. We're operating in 4 states in the United States: New York, New Jersey, Illinois, and California. We're licensed in about 18 states, representing more than half of the U.S. population. But I think you're more interested in the cool stuff.
Yes, what we really like to listen to is what was your vision? How is it that you thought that this innovation was necessary, useful, or what inspired you in this process, let's say? What was it that you were trying to change?
So what is the disruptive part of Lemonade is not really the insurance product itself, as I just mentioned. The disruptive part is the business model and the creation of a new type of insurance company, a new type of business for an insurance company that has never been created in the history of modern insurance. And the problem that we began to solve, right, the job to be done, to use innovative language, goes back to the Urban Dictionary definition of insurance. Now, the Urban Dictionary is a very big thing in the United States. I don't know how well it's known here. By a show of hands, how many people have heard of the Urban Dictionary? All right, so just a few. So the Urban Dictionary is a mechanism in which people submit what they believe is the true definition of an industry. It is what's called wisdom of the crowd, if you've ever heard that phrase before, right? So, and in the shared economy and the economy that we've been talking about all through today, it is not institutions, it is not professionals that tell us the truth anymore. We tell each other. And so the Urban Dictionary is wisdom of the crowd definitions. And so people were asked, what is the definition of the insurance industry? And the wisdom of the crowd said what the insurance industry is an industry that involves making promises to pay people later that are never fulfilled. And this notion of insurance has gone back hundreds of years. I don't want to misquote him, so I'm going to take out my piece of paper here and quote Fernando del Marco. Now, Fernando del Marco was a merchant in 1384. And in 1384, he was writing a letter to his wife about insurance. And this is what he had to say in 1384. For when they insure, it is sweet to them to take the monies. But when disaster comes, it is otherwise. And each man draws his rump back and strives not to pay.
That sounds familiar.
And by and large, folks have been feeling that way about the insurance industry for hundreds of years. So the concept of Lemonade was to change that, was to come up with a model where there was a trust between the insurance industry and the policyholders. And there's really 4 foundations, 3 or 4 value propositions for Lemonade. So the first foundation was to change that dynamics. And there is an inherent defect in the modern insurance model. And by the way, as you heard, I have been in traditional insurance for 33 of the 35 years that I have been in insurance. So I was, the man, right? So there's an inherent conflict with the traditional insurance model, whereby for every dollar that the insurance company doesn't pay in a claim is one more dollar to their profit. For every dollar an insurance company does not pay in a claim, it is one less dollar that goes to the policyholder. So the first thing that Lemonade decided to do was to eliminate that conflict of interest. So instead, our model is that we just take a 20% flat fee, 20% off the top. We do not profit by denying claims. In addition to that, the insurance industry and corporations in general don't look to better society as a general matter. In the United States, case law about corporations' fiduciary duties talks about the stakeholders that directors and officers must take in consideration. And those are creditors, shareholders, employees, customers, but not society. And so we decided to form a corporation which is certified as a B Corp within the United States. And in order to be certified that way, you have to be dedicated to making the world a better place. So how did we do that? Well, if you're only taking 20% off the top no matter what happens when you have a good year? What happens when your profits are more than 20%? What do you do with the money? You can't take it. You just said you wouldn't. So for Lemonade, our model says we give it away to charity. And not just any charity, but the charity that is chosen by the policyholder. So every policyholder, when they go on the app or they go on lemonade.com and they buy insurance, at the end, they get a list of 15 charities. And they choose which charity
Pero yo antes
is
tenía
most
otro,
important to
¿cierto?
them.
Que era mejor. ¿O no?
Okay? We choose what charity is most important to them. And then, if that group is profitable, that peer group is profitable, meaning a loss ratio less than 40%, then the excess profits is given to that charity. We call it the annual give back. The third proposition is, of course, really cool technology. Our tagline is that we are a company built on behavioral economics, and I think you have a question on behavioral economics later, so there's a lot of great stories about behavioral economics, but a company built on behavioral economics and artificial intelligence. So interfacing with our customers, and 85% of the customers are between the age of 25 and 45, 65% are between 25 and 35. They do not understand, so-called millennial generation, do not understand why buying an insurance policy is any more difficult than buying a couch on Amazon. And you know what? It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. So we create an artificial intelligence in which on your phone or on lemonade.com, you can buy an insurance policy in less than 90 seconds. And you just saw it there, it was in real time. More importantly, artificial intelligence in claims. And so within 3 minutes, you can submit a claim. And the only way to submit a claim is on your phone. There is no claim form. There is no fax machine. There is no piece of paper you could fax. There is no address that you could send the claim form into, even if we had one. You can't even submit a claim online. The only way to submit a claim is on your phone. And yes, we have figured out what to do if your claim is you lost your phone. And it takes 3 minutes. Now, we're going to talk about what we do in those 3 minutes. But through artificial intelligence, a simple claim, and about 25% of our claims are handled by the AI. We call it AI Jim, because Jim is a real person who's our chief claims examiner, but AI Jim is a lot smarter than Jim, or at least a lot faster than Jim. And so you submit the claim in, simple claim, 25% of our claims are handled this way. Artificial intelligence is able to find your policy, verify that there's coverage, run 18 different anti-fraud algorithms to determine that you're not trying to cheat, decide to pay the claim, and pay the claim through ACH. Guess how long it takes the system to do that from the moment you hit the submit button to the moment the claim is paid, if it's a simple claim like the one I just described. Anyone throw out a number? 2 minutes, I heard. 6 minutes. 30 seconds. You're closest, but you're still not there. 5 seconds. 5 seconds is very close. 3 seconds. 3 seconds. As far as we know, that is a Guinness World Record in paying claims. So, artificial intelligence, behavioral economics, which I think is your next question, and making the world a better place through charitable give back. That's what makes lemonade lemonade.
So let's go exactly into that next question, behavioral economics. I am guessing that goes into the other part of your business, the part that doesn't really relate to the way that you are executing this cool technology and interacting with your clients. How is it that you use behavioral economics in your model?
So this is. You mean if I stand up, I'm sort
I
of
don't
falling.
mind.
I'm falling down.
As long as I don't have to stand up
okay
with you,
with
it's
everybody?
okay.
So I'll sit down in a second, but I'm getting a little bit like this. I'll end up falling, and then the video will get screwed up. So Lemonade is, I think, the only insurance company with a chief behavioral officer. And his name is Dan Ariely. He is a professor at Duke University, and he's really a guru in the behavioral economics sphere. If you haven't heard one of his TED Talks, he should. And I've already talked about at least one aspect in which we are trying to change our own behavior, change the behavior that is inherent in an insurance department not to pay claims. And I'm not saying anyone is a crook or anyone is dishonest. I know many, many people in claims departments of many, many insurance companies, and they're all good people. And in their heart, they want to pay every covered claim as quickly as possible. But there's something inherent in the system, and that's picked up by the policyholder. You know, a recent survey said that 25% of people will cheat on their claim forms. 25%. The other 75% have been brought up not to say such things to strangers. Okay, anyway. So, how do you change that behavior? So Dan Ariely has a very famous experiment, which I'll tell you about. So he has a student class, and he gives them a test, and it's a math test. They have a certain number of questions to answer in a certain amount of time. Now, it's impossible to answer all those questions in the time allotted. So they do the best they can, and at the end, they go up to the front, and there is a shredder. And they take the test, and they put it through the shredder. And then they tell the proctor how many questions they got right. And they get $1, 3,000 pesos, if I recall, for every question that they got right. Now, the problem is that the shredder was not a shredder. It was a scanner. So that the professor was able to determine how many questions they, in fact, got right. And on average, people got about 4 questions right, and they said they got 6. So that became the level of cheating. So then he did the exact same experiment, but before doing the math exam, he gave them another test. And the test was to write down as many of the 10 commandments that they could think of. How many of them wrote all 10? 0. They made up a number of interesting ones along the way. And then they take the math exam. And then again, the shredder that is actually a scanner. Cheating went down to 0. No one cheated. It wasn't like the ones that remembered more of the 10 commandments, cheated less. No one cheated. And the professor called that priming the mind. It's something about thinking about your best version of yourself, what God wants you to be, before doing an activity that prevents you from cheating on that activity. So, what does this have to do with insurance? So we went to the insurance industry, and he said, your claim form is crazy. You have them write down what the claim is, and then after they do that, they sign saying everything they just said is true. Well, they're not going to go back and change it now. They already lied. He said, just take the signature line and move it from the bottom to the top of the claim form. Everything I'm about to tell you will be the truth, and insurance fraud will drop by 40%. He went to the industry, he told them, he showed them the experiments, he showed them the math, he showed them that it was true. How many insurance companies changed the location of where they put the signature line? You understand? Exactly right. 0. The lawyers won't like it. We've already filed it that way. Nobody else does it that way. That's the beauty of a startup. And the last speaker was speaking extremely eloquently about what innovation means in a startup environment and what innovation means in an established company. And that's one of the difficulties in having true disruptive innovation in legacy traditional companies. But for Lemonade, it's simple as simple can be. So in our claim form, which is not really a form, it's a chat bot, right, where you tell the artificial intelligence Jim what happened, we have, before you do that, an honesty statement that you sign, that you say everything I'm about to tell you is the truth, and I know that if I inflate my claim, the dollars that are coming to me that I don't deserve are being taken away from charity. We believe that insurance fraud will drop down significantly as a result of that. It'll be years before we can tell. And we've done one other example of using behavioral economics to try to modify the behavior of our customers. I've already talked about how we've modified our own behavior. In the claim form, you talk to the videotape about what happened, just what happened. And not only can our artificial intelligence system then figure out what happened based upon your rendition, your narrative, but psychologists will say that people are less likely to lie if they're looking at themselves in a mirror, because they believe they can tell that they're lying, and they believe that therefore other people can tell that they're lying. And so the purpose of the videotape is not just to make it easy on the customer to tell the story, but to decrease, we believe, the likelihood of insurance fraud, because people have to be looking at each other when they're looking at themselves, rather, when they're telling the story. So we've done other things, but in the interest of time, I'll just stop there. And we continue to use behavioral economics in looking at our own behavior as an insurance company, as well as the behavior of our customers.
So we're going to get some mirrors for our tax authorities and change that form now that I'm listening to you. How about some other aspects of risk? Is there any other aspect of risk administration that it's different between the traditional insurance model? Or are we talking more or less about the same kind of technology in terms of risk administration?
It's really cutting-edge technology. So we went out there as a company and looked at and interviewed the standard policy administration technology companies out there that serve the insurance industry. And to be polite, I'm not going to mention any of their names. One of our co-founders is a software coder. In fact, Shai Wittenberg probably has the reputation of being one of the best coders in the entire world. And he was listening to this presentation for this typical technology company that provides policy admin systems to the insurance industry. And they were saying, oh, for $10 million in 2 years, we can get you this and this. And Shai whispered to me, and this was way back at the beginning, he said, Ty, what am I missing? I can do what they're talking about in an afternoon for less than $100,000. And sure enough, we went in that direction. So I can't say that having proprietary technology is the answer for every company, but it is for us. Because as Uber sees themselves as a technology company that happens to be in the business of transportation, Lemonade sees ourselves as a technology company that happens to be in the business of insurance. So we do all our own technology out of Tel Aviv, the brightest, 20-something-year-olds that you can ever imagine. And I'll give you one fun example of the difference between when you're in control of your own technology and you have the right people, and when you are relying upon a third party who's been providing technology for decades to the insurance industry. So our number one coder on the Shy is a guy named Moshe. And at one point, we were getting close to a license in New York, and Moshe, we needed to do a lot of changes in rating and in rating formulas. And so I called up Moshe from New York, and I said, Moshe, I need you to make a lot of changes in the rating plan. And I just started rattling them off as quickly as I could. I must have rattled 12 to 15 changes. And in the background, I could hear the typewriting, the type of a computer writing everything that I said. So at the end of what was 15 minutes, I said, Moshe, do you have all that? And he said, what do you mean, Ty? And I said, well, did you write down all the things I need you to do? And he said, no. And I said, why not? And he said, well, I did them. I was doing them as you were talking. Should I have not done them that way? Do you want me to undo it?
Unwrite them.
And I said, no. That type of thing, if I had had a third-party provider typical of providing this type of services to the insurance industry, first I would have had to put it in writing. Then I would have to put it in writing 4 times. Then it would have been lost by email. Then would have eventually they said they would do it for only another $1 million, and it would be ready in about 18 months. Meanwhile, I needed a license the following day. So Lemonade has been very, very lucky to be able to hire the best and the brightest software coders, and we do everything our own. The result of which is we are leading the market in the technology. Now, not to put down any of my other competitors, they're trying very, very hard. And I do appreciate all the Geico commercials that seem to have lemonade in it. And I appreciate Liberty Mutual. They came out with a product that basically looks just like lemonade. So, flattery is terrific, and I'm sure that one day they'll do something different than us. It's easier to be disruptive. It's easier to be unique when you control your own destiny.
You were talking about licensing, and that brings to my mind some group of people that might be here with us today, regulators. We get a lot. I'm a former regulator, so I don't have to carry that burden anymore, but we get a lot about lack of innovation being partly to blame on regulators. So I'd like to just hear you out. How was it in this process? Did you find that somehow Lemonade did not fit? And how was the communication process with regulators? What can our regulators learn about how to walk with innovation with the heavy burden that we do have in terms of protecting customers and financial stability?
So I want you to imagine the first meeting with the regulators. Right? So we're explaining the Lemonade model. We're explaining we don't have an application. We don't have a claim form. We do everything on a phone or in the web. And that we have this sort of cockamamie business theory that we group everyone together that names the same charity. So at the end of you buying an insurance policy, you choose one of 15 charities that you believe in, and we group all those people that selected the same charity. That's why we're called peer-to-peer. That's the peer group. And that if that peer group is profitable, we give money back to that charity. You can imagine the first reaction of the regulators. But regulators get a bad rap. They're good people for the most part, highly intelligent for the most part, and more creative than you would think they would be. And so Lemonade, right from the beginning, and this was a different philosophy than some other technology companies had toward their regulators, Uber being the obvious example that went in a different direction. But for Lemonade, from the very beginning, we were transparent with our regulators about what our business was. And we saw them as our partners in the process. Because at the end of the day, both the insurance company and the insurance regulators have the same goal, which is to make sure that the insurance industry provides reasonably priced, effective insurance that is there at the time of the claim. And if you and we, as the insurance industry, do that, there'll be no problems with the regulators. So it took 10 months for New York, which has a reputation of being one of the toughest regulators in the country, in the United States. It took them 10 months to evaluate this new Lemonade model and approve it, which is a record for insurance regulators in general, and definitely a record in New York. It took slightly less time for the next guy, who was California, and less for the next guy, who was Illinois. And now we actually have a tipping point. For those of you that study innovation, you know the phrase tipping point. And so about last month, we got a tipping point, because not only were we licensed in states representing more than 50% of the country, but then those few states at the very beginning said, I don't get this, I don't get you, I'm just going to say no. And frankly, they were so small that we figured we'd just get back to them later. They started calling us, I kid you not, and saying, hey, so when are you going to come to our state? And it was a little bit of an embarrassing conversation, because we had to say to them, well, don't you remember you told us to withdraw the application? And then they would say, yeah, forget about that. So we're going to be taking the application out of the trash can and approving it, and it should be done in a few days. So when do you think you can get to our state again? And of course, that's a wonderful feeling. So like in any industry, there will be leaders and there will be followers. But at least in the United States, there was enough regulatory leaders that saw InsurTech and saw Lemonade to approve our business model and approve our license. So, regulators are our friends. And while we're talking about the government, I also want to say a good word about the legislators, because we wanted to go into Florida, I know. We wanted to go into Florida, and Florida had a law, not a regulation, an actual law, that had a very, very high minimum statutory capital, meaning we really couldn't afford to go into Florida. But it didn't make sense to apply that rule to companies like Lemonade that would only do renter's insurance. And so we went to the Department of Insurance and said, would you be in favor of us changing the law? Would you support us changing the law? And they said yes. And then we found a legislature in Florida, Santiago, Representative Santiago, and he saw the vision as well. And so he put together an amendment that later was called the Lemonade Amendment that changed the law to allow companies like Lemonade to do business in Florida. So throughout the government, you will find people of creativity, of innovation, of intelligence. Find those people and make them your partners.
In this case, probably we have a substantial difference with the United States market because we come from the French tradition, so everything is written down. So our regulators are a little bit more akin to your legislator in the sense that you can go to them with a very beautiful business model, but the thing is that they have all sorts of regulation that was already drafted and that may not allow for an innovator to fit in. Was there a lot of regulations that needed to be written again, a part of this capital requirement that you're mentioning?
The beauty of it is that other than the Florida example I just gave, we did not have to rewrite any regulation in the United States. Even though the Lemonade business model never existed in the history of U.S. insurance regulation or anywhere else in the world that I'm aware of. the regulators saw the purpose of the lemonade model, saw the beauty of it, saw the advantages of it to the policyholders of their state. And the regulators fundamentally viewed themselves as a consumer protection agency. So once we showed that the lemonade model was for the benefit of the policyholders, for the benefit of consumers, we were able to get it done without any change in a regulation. Now, I am aware that due to your French heritage is more difficult here. And yet, I think maybe there are examples where it still can be done. So, for example, there is a law here in Colombia, anti-money laundering law, that requires a signature. Very good law, very good law. Well, what about electronic signatures? Would electronic signatures be in per se violation of that regulation? Or can the regulation simply be interpreted to accept electronic signatures and even electronic fingerprints? So I would encourage regulators throughout this land to remember that their purpose is the same purpose of the insurance industry, to provide needed protection to our mutual beneficiaries, the policyholders. So maybe, just maybe, some of the regulations can be viewed differently without being changed.
We are working on it, I'm guessing. And actually, electronic signature is part of the market. We're trying to drive down prices and get more efficiencies into the process. You were talking a bit ago about your competitors and how you see yourself probably more in a technological industry that happens to be providing our insurance services. Who are your competitors? What's surrounding that environment that it's also innovating every day that you find could be challenging or an opportunity for you to keep changing again?
So that's a great question. And you know, the party line is always, you know, we don't have any competitors because there's nobody like lemonade, which is true but extremely unhelpful. So I'll divide the world into two competitors, one group that I'm not worried about, the other group that I am. The group I'm not worried about is the traditional insurance carriers, with all due respect to all of those that are represented in this room. I love you all dearly. But I spent 33 years of my life being in charge of innovation in some of the largest insurance companies in the world. There was a point in time when AIG had more assets than most nations. It is very difficult to do true disruptive innovation within a legacy insurance system. For psychological reasons, sociological reasons, technology reasons, cultural reasons, it's very difficult. What we find is that many of our traditional carriers are copycatting us. And it's a compliment, you know, that's good. I'm not worried about copycats. One, if you're trying to be innovative, you're not telling your clients that you're innovative by copying somebody else who's innovative. And secondly, we'll always be moving the ball ahead, always to where the puck is going to be, or the football is going to be. But then there's the other category of innovators, and many of them appeared on the slides of the last presenter. Many of them are investments by Munich Re. Those guys I'm a little worried about. One, anybody that Munich Re invests in, you'd be stupid not to worry about. But secondly, those are the folks. You know, Brian Duperreault, who is now the CEO of AIG, gave a speech recently that I was fortunate enough to listen to. And he was telling an audience of this size, composed of traditional insurers, if we do not innovate, taking a line by Mike McGavitt from XL Catlin, if we do not innovate, we will become irrelevant. And we must all think like a unicorn. 3/4 of the people in the audience didn't know what he was talking about. And he said, I'm not worried you shouldn't be worried about the person sitting next to you. You should be worried about the person in a garage in Silicon Valley or Tel Aviv or perhaps Bogota. So, yeah, so far nobody has come close to us, but there are folks I'm worried about.
There's another agent in this whole process, which is the reinsurer. Is there any need for innovation in that part of the industry, or is that relationship adjusted to your model? Is there any considerations about the process of reinsuring risk that needs to innovate, or that has changed actually because of your existence?
So I think there's a great opportunity and a continued great opportunity for innovation in reinsurance. And I loved that slide that was up only a few minutes ago, where an employee of Munich Re says in a cartoon, the person on the phone is looking to buy reinsurance. Do we still do that? What a wonderful mental state, right? I believe that for the reinsurers in the room, if all you do is sell reinsurance, you will become irrelevant. Not today, not tomorrow, but one day soon. And so you need to be looking at, in my mind, the needs of your customers, but even more important than that, the needs of your customers' customers. And come up with new insurance products and new ways of servicing those companies through internal innovation or partnership with third parties in order to satisfy those needs. And if you do that, you will not look like the reinsurer you were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and certainly not 100 years ago. But you will survive and you will thrive. So yes, I think there's a great opportunity for innovation in reinsurance today, and there are a number of reinsurers doing that. And there are a number that aren't.
So that's the sort of challenge for reinsurance. How about the future for Lemonade? Are you looking into different branches or different geographies or different markets?
So expansion is obviously a key in any business. It's certainly a key in insurance and is a key to Lemonade. The most logical expansion is first geographical expansion. And if you're in the United States, you have 50 plus kingdoms to have their king or queen or ruler bless you. And that takes a bit of time. International expansion is obviously next. We have already been approached by a number of countries on the most senior levels on when are you going to come here. I think there'll be locations where we can go it alone, and I think, frankly, there are locations where we're going to need a local partner, and we're always interested in speaking to potential local partners. Product expansion, right? Homeowners, renters, condos, well, you don't just stop there, right? If you're customer-focused innovation, and that's the only innovation you could be, you look at what your customers want. And there are certain other products, whether umbrella, pet insurance, thing insurance, et cetera, et cetera. And it may or may not be Lemonade, but I believe that the Lemonade model will work for small business commercial. And one day there'll be a really smart insurance company out there, maybe Lemonade, it may be somebody else, that will apply the model to BOPs and small PI and other small business professional.
I'm going to throw a question out there that brings us to Colombia. The main feature that I'm going to use to describe our country, you may have your own free opinions, but at least in terms of financial inclusion and financial deepening, is informality. We lack information. That's basically what we don't have. And I was listening to you and reading and watching the videos, and I was worried because at some point in time I said, it sounds so exciting, but I don't know how much of it depends in information availability. But again, listening to all your cool tech innovations, I'm thinking maybe we're just not fishing for information in all the ponds we can find it. We were looking for the usual suspects. And I don't know if I could pick your brain a little bit about if we may be just missing out on where the information could be in order to be able to insure more policy or to have more policy holders.
There's no doubt that underwriting arises out of data analysis. And we are benefited in the United States by having access to sources of data about the risk so we don't have to ask the insured. We don't have to ask the insured when his home was built. We don't have to ask the insured what his credit score is. We don't have to ask his insured what the home is made of. And that's advantageous. However, as underwriters, we've always been told that more information is better. That's true, but not if you're bugging your insured. If you're asking the insured for the information, you need to ask as little questions as possible. 3 would be good. And that really challenges us in markets in which there isn't a lot of third-party data sources. The other part of your question, though, was fascinating, which is what data to look for. And here, the property casualty insurance market has been very uninnovative, right? We think that we insure the thing, and therefore all we need to do is find out about the thing, the home, the apartment, the bicycle. More that we know about the thing, that's all we need. What we forget is that we're really insuring the person that owns the thing, or the person that has access to the thing. It's something that life insurance companies obviously know everything about because the thing to them is the person. But for property casualty insurance companies, really the only thing we ask about the person in homeowners insurance is your credit score. And even that is fairly new, less than 10 years ago. And can you imagine the first conversation? Can you imagine the underwriter going to the CEO of the property casualty company and saying, you know, I want to ask how well the insured pays his electricity bill? Can you imagine what the CEO said? The CEO probably said, you do know we're insuring homes, right? And so it was a shock. It was in some ways disruptive. But it was absolutely true because people who pay their electrical bill often and on time tend to also take care of their house better. But then we kind of stopped, right? We had one winner and then we just stopped. Well, what if I told you that Lemonade tracks how often our customers recharge their iPhone? We know that, right? And we have a working theory that says people who charge their iPhone or their Android more often will be better risks. And one day, we will be filing a rating plan adjustment based upon how often someone recharges their iPhone. So I think what the insurance industry needs to do is expand our notion of what data is important and where that data should be coming from.
Well, I think that we are gonna be able to have 10 minutes for some Q&A for the public, but I want to take the benefit of the microphone for just a little while to sort of summarize things that I've been thinking about and maybe gathering lessons that I think that we could all take away. We don't have a lot of legislators in the audience, I'm thinking. But one thing that I was thinking about is that we've come to the point in Colombia in which we have so much protection of the customer's information that we have disprotected, I don't know if that word exists, the customer. So that's one particular lobby that we need to do because we are protecting them so much that we are leaving them exposed to informal financial services with all the consequences that that brings to the kind of population that we have in Colombia in particular. To regulators, since I happen to know a little bit more in detail what our regulators have in their regulations, I think, and I don't think, no, it would be fair to tell you, we should concentrate on the what, and we should let some innovation come in on the how. We're trying to protect customers. We are not always the only ones who know how to do that. We may come in partnerships with new industries or new ways of developing services to learn about that and be a little bit more flexible. I do understand, I'm gonna go into Spanish mode, that our control authorities, we call them DAIAs, Procuradurías, Contralorías, Fiscalías, y una que otra tía, go against our own process of innovation, but I think that what we need to keep moving and pushing onwards into that agenda. And to all your industry players in here, you still have a lot of innovation to do. So do please come here, get inspired, and go and work on it. I'm quite sure that all us authorities are willing to work with you to get some more financial inclusion in a country in which contingencies and the inability to handle them is one major liability in the life of an informal citizen who is gonna be condemned to perpetuity, to informality, and its family if we are not able to provide him an efficient way to handle that risk. So that was my privilege of the microphone. And I want to open the floor for Q&A. We have you first. I want, if you can just stand up and we can have a microphone. Or you can also scream really loud. If you want to ask the question in Spanish, I can translate.
Mi pregunta es muy sencilla. ¿Por qué empezaron con el seguro de hogar y si han pensado expandirse a otro tipo de producto?
Why did you start by home insurance and renters, and have you thought about expanding to other kind of products?
So the question is, just to repeat it, when did Lemonade start selling home insurance, and are we thinking of other products?
Or why home insurance?
Oh, why?
Why
Okay.
home insurance?
Thank you. Okay. Okay. We wanted, frankly, to start with personal lines rather than commercial lines because our business model was fundamentally about people and bringing things back to the community. Our business model was not about helping corporations make money. Once you start with personal lines, you need, frankly, to start with a large segment of personal lines because while we are a B Corp and we're trying to make the world a better place, we are proudly a for-profit corporation, and our venture capitalists are not in it for just to make the world a better place. And so when you get to that point, you're only really between home and auto. And for those of you that are in the auto business or the motor business, you realize that is a tough business, and it's a complicated business. And so it was somewhat a result of eliminating everything else, and it didn't take too long to figure out that we wanted to start at home. But as I indicated, that's just where you start. You can add other policies geared to the individual. I see a lot of dogs in Bogota. I'm a big dog person myself, so there's a lot of pressure on pet insurance. Perhaps we can start here with pet insurance.
I think we have another question there.
Yes, was Lemonade created for the millennial generation, or you can say that it's for everybody?
I'm sorry, can you just speak a little bit más lentamente porque por el micrófono no alcanzamos a entenderte?
Okay. Was Lemonade created for the millennial generation, or now you can say that Lemonade is for everybody?
Well, we're very proud of the fact that 10% of our policyholders are above the age of 60. God bless those folks. But the reality of it is that if you're an insurance company that is online, that the only way to submit a claim is on your phone, and you can tell by our 3-minute video the look and feel, and you can even look at the look and feel of the Lemonade logo. It is not surprising that 80% of our customers are between the age of 25 and 45. So for those of you in the room above 45, please help me increase that percentage above the 10 or 15% that it is now.
We have space for one last question. We have a hand here. Can you just hold on 2 seconds for a microphone? Or not. Just, please. How does this model work in a CAT event? I'm just repeating so that everybody listens.
You are a reinsurer, no doubt. You know, in some ways, an insurance, Lemonade is just like any other insurance company, right? So we buy reinsurance. We buy it from, I think, some of the best and greatest reinsurers in the world, including the sponsor of this event. We buy it to a once in 350-year event, and it's a classic sort of XOL. We can withstand the usual CAT events. We think as good as, if not better than, the next guy.
Well, I think we're already short of time. So I really want to thank you very much. It was extremely interesting to listen to you and your experiences. We do hope that they take you out again. This time, if you have already had obleas, you must ask for chicharrones. And we really hope to see you back here and hopefully to bring some of your innovation to emerging markets. Thank you very much, and thank you for attention.